changed the face of politics, and they've seen incredible new people elected to the state senate who weren't there before, to the the House of Representatives here in Santa Fe, to City Council. I mean, really, they've had a big input on.
Oh, great.
I can skip this.
Hey, could you just hold that? Yeah, sure. Just focus it on.
On the quality of candidates across the spectrum and what we've seen in New Mexico in recent years. And I think it's worth thinking about some of the things that all of you have made possible in the last 19, 20 months. When I was sworn in at the very beginning of January in 2009, I'm very proud that one of the first things we addressed was the Lilly Ledbetter decision that the U.S. Supreme Court made. I really think it was one of the two, along with Citizens United, one of the two absolutely worst Supreme Court decisions in the last 50 years. And even before President Obama was inaugurated on the 20th, we were moving that legislation through the House of Representatives, through the Senate to say, it's not, this was a wrong decision. I mean, what the Supreme Court basically said was, you can pay a man and a woman 2 different wages for the same job if you hide it really well for the first few months. I mean, that's how fundamentally unequal and misguided their decision was. And we came right out of the gate and passed Lilly Ledbetter and fixed that. And as the president was inaugurated later in January, I was very happy to see that he was willing to take on the toughest vested interests in Washington right out of the gate. When he said we're going to take on consumer debt, consumer credit, and the credit card companies as our very first act, it set some people back on their heels in Washington. I think a lot of people didn't expect that. And I can tell you, having been there for a year and a half now, I have seen how powerful the army of special interests and lobbyists around the financial industry is. And to see the credit card companies not get their way for the first time in a decade or so was really, it sent the message to me that this was a president and a Congress who were serious about not just tinkering around the edges, but taking on some of the tough issues. And I can tell you, I was a city councilor, and my typical phone calls when I was on the city council were about potholes. They were about trash that didn't get picked up. They were about zoning issues. The phone rang off the hook in 2009 about credit cards because of the things that were possible, legal, in those huge, voluminous page after page of small print, where the credit cards could do things like what they like to call universal default, where you're late on somebody else's bill, so they use that to jack up your interest rate from 11% to 27%. Those kinds of things were happening with people I knew, people on my staff, people who were calling for help. And to see the president take that on, the Congress to pass that legislation, and then for him to come out to New Mexico to talk about just how important it is, I think set the right stage. Because there were a lot of things in our economy, and if you go back and look at the dive in terms of the job numbers and how it bottomed out right as we were all coming into office and beginning to work on the economy, there were a lot of fundamental problems. It wasn't just what happened precipitously at the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009 that resulted in $13 trillion of our money disappearing from the economy. There were a lot of fundamental problems with credit cards. There were fundamental problems with mortgages. And you saw this Congress and this president stand up to the Wall Street banks and pass not only Wall Street reform, but mortgage reform at the same time. And make many of the worst practices that were, when you see people losing their homes, when you see foreclosures like I did on the Southwest Mesa here in Albuquerque. Oftentimes, behind the story were some of these subprime loans, mortgages where people were actually getting bonuses in this country to write somebody into a more expensive mortgage than what they qualified for. So it was actually legal to say, you you qualify for a 5.7% mortgage, but we're going to give a bonus to somebody who doesn't tell you that and writes you into a 7% or an 8% mortgage. Those kinds of things are illegal today. And they were terrible for the entire mortgage, the credible mortgage industry, the credible realty industry, the credible home builders, and they undermined our entire